2 races. That's all it took. 2 races for Mercedes to go from competitive to completely untouchable. Back-to-back 1-2 finishes. Perfect execution. 0 mistakes. And now, the FIA is watching them. Not casually. Closely. Because something about this dominance doesn't add up. Same engine across multiple teams. But only one team is winning. Only one team is flawless. And the others are breaking before the race even starts. So the question isn't just how fast Mercedes is. The real question is, what are they doing differently? And more importantly, is it even legal? Stay until the end, because one hidden detail could explain everything. And once you hear it, you won't see these races the same way again. Subscribe now, because this story is far from over. At first, nobody panicked. Because Formula One has seen dominant starts before. A strong opening race doesn't mean domination. It doesn't mean superiority. It just means you got it right once. And Australia felt like that. Mercedes looked sharp, well prepared, confident, but still within reach. Ferrari had pace. Red Bull showed flashes. Even McLaren looked like they could fight. So the narrative was simple. Close season. Tight margins. Multiple contenders. But that illusion didn't last long. Because when the lights went out in China, something felt different. Not dramatic. Not chaotic. Just controlled. Too controlled. Antonelli didn't just win. He managed the race. Like a veteran. Like someone who knew exactly how much pace he had, and exactly when to use it. And behind him, Russell did the same. No pressure. No mistakes. No real threat. And this is where the first crack appeared. Because when a driver wins comfortably, that's normal. When both drivers do it twice, that's a pattern. And patterns in Formula One make people nervous. But here's what really started to raise eyebrows. It wasn't just the race pace. It was what happened in between. Qualifying. Sector times. Acceleration zones. Every time Mercedes needed to push, they found more. Not a little more. Enough to create a gap. 0.3. Sometimes more. Especially in pure power sections. And that's not something you hide. That's something everyone sees. And once everyone sees it, the questions begin. Because gains like that don't come from nowhere. They come from something specific. Something repeatable. Something engineered. And this is where teams started looking deeper. Not at the car. Not at the drivers. At the system. Because the 2026 regulations changed everything about how power works. Half combustion. Half electric. Which means raw speed is no longer enough. You need balance. Perfect balance. Between harvesting energy and deploying it. Too aggressive and you overheat. Too conservative and you lose time. There's no middle ground. Unless you've found something others haven't. And Mercedes looks like they have. Because lap after lap, stint after stint, there is no drop. No visible limitation. No moment where the car says, that's enough. It just keeps going. Consistent. Stable. Predictable. And that's not just performance. That's control. And in Formula One, control is the most dangerous advantage of all. Because when you control the variables, you control the race. But here's the part that really changed the tone inside the paddock. While Mercedes was executing perfectly, other teams using the exact same power unit were struggling to survive. And that contradiction, that gap between perfection and failure, that's what turned curiosity into suspicion. And suspicion into something much bigger. And this is where the story takes a turn that most people didn't expect. Because inside the paddock, the tone changed. Quietly at first. Small conversations. Engineers talking to engineers. Team principals choosing their words carefully. But the message was the same. Something doesn't add up. Because if Mercedes simply built the best engine, then everyone using that engine should benefit. Maybe not equally. Maybe not perfectly. But at least, consistently. And that's not what's happening. Not even close. McLaren arrives in China with expectations. They leave without even starting the race. Both cars out before the formation lap. Electrical failures. Separate incidents. Same consequence. And more importantly, linked to the power unit systems. That's not bad luck. That's a red flag. And it didn't stop there. Williams struggled. Audi reported issues. Different teams. Different setups. Same underlying problem. And suddenly, the most dominant engine on the grid also became the most unpredictable. But only outside Mercedes. Let that sink in. Because this is where things get uncomfortable. Inside the factory team, everything works perfectly. No failures. No overheating. No emergency modes. Nothing. Just clean performance. Race after race. But the moment that same technology leaves their hands, problems appear. And that creates a question no one wants to ask directly. Is it really the same engine? Or is it something else? Because officially, it is. Same homologated unit. Same regulations. Same limits. That's what the rules say. But Formula One has never been just about what the rules say. It's about how much you understand them. And more importantly, how much you choose to share. Because several teams have started pointing at something very specific. Not hardware. Not components. Knowledge. Access. Understanding. A gap. A gap that cannot be measured in parts, but can be seen on track. Because having the engine is one thing. Knowing how to extract everything from it is something else entirely. And right now, Mercedes seems to be operating on a completely different level of understanding. Energy deployment. Harvesting under braking. Thermal management. Software mapping. All those invisible layers that don't show up on a spec sheet, but decide everything on track. And this is where frustration starts to build. Because customers are beginning to realize they are not just behind, they are blind, forced to figure things out on their own, while the team that built the system already knows every limit, every trick, every safe zone, and every dangerous one. And in a regulation era where precision is everything, that difference is massive. It's the difference between finishing a race and not even starting it. But here's the part that really escalated the situation. Because once teams feel that gap, they don't just complain internally. They start looking for answers elsewhere. And in Formula One, there is only one place to take those questions. The FIA. And that's exactly what's happening now. Not as an accusation. Not as a protest. But as pressure. Because when too many pieces don't fit, someone has to check the whole puzzle. And the FIA has no choice but to look closer. But what they are really looking for, that's something almost no one is talking about yet. And when you understand that part, everything you've seen so far starts to make a lot more sense. And this is where everything tightens. Because up to this point, you could still explain it. Better preparation. Better integration. More experience with the system. All of that makes sense. All of that is normal. But what the FIA is now looking at goes beyond preparation. It goes into interpretation. Into the fine print of the regulations. Into the areas where the rules are clear on paper, but flexible in reality. And this is where that one detail begins to surface. The one detail teams didn't want to talk about publicly. The compression ratio. It sounds small, almost irrelevant. But in this new era, it changes everything. Because with the 2026 regulations, engines are no longer just about raw combustion power. They are part of a delicate balance. 50% combustion, 50% electric. Which means every gain on the combustion side multiplies across the entire system. More efficient burn. Better energy recovery. Stronger deployment. Longer consistency. It's not just power. It's compounding advantage. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the FIA measures engines under controlled conditions. Static. Stable. Predictable. But a Formula One engine never lives in that world. On track, everything changes. Temperatures rise. Materials expand. Tolerances shift just enough. And according to what rival teams are beginning to suspect, Mercedes may have designed their engine to behave differently, exactly in those moments. Not in the test environment. Not when it's inspected. But when it matters. At full speed. Under real stress. Because if you can run a slightly higher effective compression, only when the engine is hot, only when it's operating at peak conditions, then you gain performance, without ever failing a static test. And that's the key. Because technically, you're still within the rules. But practically, you're ahead of everyone else. And not by chance, by design. This is what some engineers are calling a gray zone exploitation. Not illegal, not provable, but incredibly effective. And if this is true, then everything we've seen suddenly connects. The straight line advantage, the lack of energy drop-off, the ability to deploy again and again without compromise, the stability, the control, the dominance. It's not one thing. It's a chain reaction. And at the center of that chain is a tiny detail most fans never think about. Now imagine being a rival team. You check the data. You compare telemetry. You analyze performance. And nothing looks illegal. Everything seems correct. But the result is still out of reach. That's the worst scenario in Formula One. Because you can't protest what you can't prove. But you also can't ignore what you're seeing. And that's why pressure is building. Not publicly. Not aggressively. But steadily. Because teams like Ferrari, Honda, Audi, They're not asking if Mercedes is fast. They're asking why. And more importantly, why only them? So now the FIA is in a difficult position. Because if they do nothing, and Mercedes continues like this, the season could be decided before it really begins. But if they step in, if they change how things are measured, if they close that potential window, they risk rewriting the competitive order overnight. And that is something Formula One tries to avoid. But here's the real tension. Because this isn't just about performance anymore. It's about trust. Trust between teams. Trust between suppliers and customers. Trust in the rules themselves. And right now, all three are starting to crack. But the biggest question hasn't been answered yet. Not even close. Because even if this compression theory is true, even if Mercedes found that window, there's still one piece missing. One final element. That explains why no one else can replicate it. And when you see that piece, you understand why the situation is much bigger than just 2 races. And this is the part nobody wanted to admit. Because everything so far still leaves one question open. If the idea is there, if the theory exists, if teams suspect what Mercedes might be doing, then why can't anyone else copy it? Why is the gap still growing, instead of closing? And the answer is not in the engine. It's in something much harder to replicate. Integration. Because in 2026, the power unit is not a standalone component anymore. It's not something you just install and run. It's deeply connected to the chassis, to the aerodynamics, to the cooling system, to the software. Everything works together, or nothing works at all. And this is where Mercedes has done something almost invisible, but devastatingly effective. They didn't just build a strong engine. They built a complete ecosystem around it. Every airflow channel, every cooling inlet, every line of code managing energy deployment. All of it designed together. From the beginning. Not adapted. Not adjusted later. Engine and car, born as one. And that changes everything. Because while customer teams received the same power unit, they didn't receive the same understanding of how to build around it. They had to adapt their cars, adjust their systems, interpret the behavior, trial and error, race after race, while Mercedes already knew the answers, already knew the limits, already knew exactly how far they could push without breaking anything. And that's why one car looks unstoppable, and another can't even start the race. It's not just power. It's precision. It's harmony. It's control at a level the others haven't reached yet. And here's where it becomes even more critical. Because this kind of advantage doesn't disappear quickly. You can copy a part. You can analyze data. You can even redesign systems. But you can't instantly replicate understanding. That takes time. Races. Failures. And by the time you get there, the team ahead has already moved forward again. That's the real danger. Because if Mercedes has combined a possible gray area in engine behavior with the most advanced integration on the grid, then what we're seeing is not just early dominance. It's a locked advantage. One that feeds itself.